And a very good morning, Chris Barrow here in the Barrow Bunker. It's the May Day bank holiday here, 28th of May. And so it's what I always call the freelancers catch-up day, because whilst there's a lot of people out there enjoying some unusually sunny weather, for this part of the world particularly, it is now 1:45 midday. And I've been down here in the bunker since about 6:30 this morning, just doing catch-up stuff. And it's really interesting that that's happened today of all days, because I have a diary note today to create this fourth episode in this series of video blogs for the Extreme Business Workshops that we are running in Sydney and Melbourne in August this year. And there's some irony in the fact that one of the things I was going to talk about today was what we're going to be discussing on the fourth session, and that's the afternoon of day 2 of the Extreme Business Workshop. And one of the items on the agenda for that afternoon is time management for owners and managers. So here I'm sat doing a 6-hour stint in my office on a bank holiday talking to you about time management. There's something rather paradoxical about that, isn't there? And you know what? It's not quite as hypocritical as it sounds, because in actual fact what I'll be doing during that workshop session is looking at the reality of what it's like to run your own business. That's the owner's time management system, as opposed to perhaps the manager's time management system. Now, I could very easily get myself in hot water here, but what I'm going to say to you is that I think that there's going to be a lot of managers out there that probably wouldn't be working on a public holiday, not exclusively, but a lot of them, whereas I think there's going to be a fairly high proportion of owners who would be using some public holiday time to do a little bit of catch-up work. And what I'm not going to do is make you feel bad about that. What I'm going to do is say, let's deal with the reality of the situation. And the reality is actually an 80-20 rule. And the agreement that I have with my wife and my family is that I'm going to endeavour to make sure that 80% of my free time is taken as true free time. And at the same time, I'm also going to have to ask my wife and family to accept that as a business owner, maybe up to 20% of what would be everybody else's free time might be me in my own office doing catch-up work or attending trade conferences or doing whatever it is I need to do to move the business forward. So what we'll talk about is that owner's time system. And let's start off with a bit of a cliche, which is that the reality is that there is no such thing as time management. What we all have is 24 hours a day. What we're dealing with here is really priority management. How do you manage your priorities when you own a business? And equally, how do you manage your priorities when you are a manager within a business as well? So I'll be sharing with you some of the lessons I've learned from some of the greats over the years. My first time management book was read in 1980. It was a book called The Time Trap by a fellow called Dr. Alex McKenzie. And it was Alex McKenzie that had me writing lists of things that I needed to do. I then kind of evolved into the Stephen Covey tribe and through 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and into First Things First, Covey's book about time management. I began to understand the difference between work that was important and urgent and work that was important but not so urgent, but actually ultimately perhaps most important of all. Then evolved into the David Allen Getting Things Done, GTD movement, which is kind of like the modern day equivalent of Covey. And of course, along the way, inevitably, you spend some time listening to Dan Sullivan at Strategic Coach in Toronto, talking about his entrepreneur's time system. And here I am in May 2018 using the Full Focus Planner system that is retailed by Michael Hyatt, who's a business coach over in North America and is a client of Dan Sullivan's himself. And I've been using this Full Focus Planner system for the last 2 months, and I'm finding it extremely useful in terms of keeping me focused, hence the title, Full Focus Planner, but keeping me focused on not necessarily what's the most urgent thing that needs to get done, but perhaps what is the most impactful thing I can do. And what I've learned using this system is that there's a huge difference between work which is urgent and work which has the greatest impact. And focusing on impact is a lesson I've learned very recently. So I'll be sharing all that with you on the afternoon of day 2. We will segue into just more generic personal organisation material for owners and managers. And what I'll be wanting to share with you is some of the technology that I keep around me in order to allow myself to be very effective with the use of time, and also of course the support team that I keep around me that enables me to stay focused on my unique abilities and make sure that everything else gets done by other members of the team. And what we'll finish off with that day is one of my favourite pieces actually, and I did a talk on this at the dentistry show just 2 weeks ago that was received very well, and it was about the difference between leadership and management. They're two different things, and whether you are an owner or a manager, there is part of your time that you're going to be in a leadership position, first with your support team and secondly with your patients. And part of the time you're going to be in a management situation, and so it's important to understand the significant, if not subtle, differences between the characteristics of a great leader and the characteristics of a great manager, and how you bring them together in your own organisation. We will then finish with an interesting challenge for the people in the room, which is to finish off really with some conversation about your overall strategy for the years ahead. So I want to finish this 2-day workshop by looking into your future. And for some of you, that might be a time horizon of 3 years. And for some of you, that might be a time horizon of 20 years, doesn't matter. What we'll end with is some of the tips and techniques that I've learned over the years in order to keep that future perspective in place during the noise of getting through the day. So, very excited about that session. And what I'm going to do in the next episode of this video blog is that I'm going to bring all of those 4 sessions, day 1, morning, afternoon, day 2, morning, afternoon, bring them all together and just take a look at what difference I think that attending this workshop will make, and then hopefully we'll round off. So for now, I've got a couple of hours more work to do down here, and then I'm going to call it a draw, get upstairs, get on my bicycle and continue training for my Land's End John O'Groats 960-mile bike ride for charity in September this year. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I wish you a happy rest of the day. Thanks for listening.